Broadcast is now starting. All attendees are in listen-only mode.
Good afternoon and welcome to today's webinar for IPSE. My name is Luann Wise, I'm your host for today, and today's topic is how to nail social media in 10 minutes a day. I have pressed record on this session so you can listen again afterwards. If you didn't join us live but you're listening, thank you for joining us as well and watching the webinar slides again. The Q&A box is on your screen, so please do feel free to pop questions in the box as we're going. I will keep a quick eye on it just in case we have any tech issues going on. Otherwise, we will have time for Q&A at the end of the session. We'll run for about half an hour, so that I appreciate it's your lunchtime and there's lots of things to do, particularly on a Monday. So I will crack on, but I should really say nailing social media in 10 minutes a day is all about process and preparation. Yes, you will need to spend a bit more time on some planning and creating content, whether that's visuals or longer form content or updating your website, things like that. This 10 minutes a day is really about some tips and ideas and helping you plan so that you can keep on top of things, so that you can manage your day-to-day active presence when you have lots of other things to do in your business as well. So yeah, quick Q&A already. Will I send the presentation slides? Absolutely, you'll get the slides as well as a copy of the recording. So in case you haven't listened to one of my webinars before or we haven't met, I will briefly introduce myself because otherwise I am just a voice behind your computer. My name is Luann Wise. I am a marketer. I'm a chartered marketer, a fellow of the Chartered Institute of Marketing. I've got 20 years experience working in advertising agencies, client side as a marketing manager, and I've been running my own consultancy business for almost 9 years now. I call myself a T-shaped marketer, which means I have a generalism and understanding, quite a broad background across a multiple of disciplines, but a T-shape because I have a specialism in social media. I have had that for over 10 years now, since setting my own social media profiles up, and to the point where I've written some books on the topic, Relax, It's Only Social Media, and I've also created a social media planner. I'm really proud and delighted that I do get to work directly with some of the social media platforms. I am one of LinkedIn Learning's course instructors, so if you have a premium account, or you can now buy the courses, pay as you go, they're online learning courses. I've written and presented 7 of those on the topics of social media, content marketing and marketing planning. I am an accredited trainer for Facebook and Instagram, part of their She Means Business campaign. I'm a coach for Google's Digital Garage initiative, and I'm also an ambassador for IPSE. So without further ado, today I'm going to cover quite a lot of things broadly, but hopefully you'll see within this slide deck lots of resources that you can note down, take away afterwards. I've included them all as links at the end of the slide deck with some specific resources as well for you to download. What I'm going to talk about is having a social media marketing plan and the importance of that. As I talk through my process for social media planning, I've got some key tools that I use as part of that preparation, which I'll share with you. Behind the one-page plan that I will share with you sits detail of content that I would create, and I would create that into what I call a calendar. The good thing about social media is that actually you don't need to create everything yourself. So I'm going to show you a couple of tools that I use for curating content. And the word curating is really about finding content from across the web, from various resources, so that you can share it. 1, it helps you share more content, but 2, it also allows you to be seen as the go-to expert, that you're well read on your topic. No one else needs to go to other people if they know that you're reading the right stuff about your key areas. And some of the tools that I use to manage my time better, to make life easier, to stay really focused, I will talk to you about Twitter lists specifically. I'm going to share with you the tools that I use for scheduling and some automation. And ultimately, because I said this, being able to do things in 10 minutes a day is about process and preparation, I'm going to share with you some templates that I use and a master checklist that you'll be able to download afterwards, along with some other next steps. I love this cartoon. It's by the Marketoonist. If you ever get a chance to have a look at the work he does, he releases a new Marketoon every week. This for me is a bit of a classic. It's one I use all the time. It's a huge danger with social media that people will dive straight in. They'll dive straight into knowing that they want to use one of the platforms. They may not know why. There may be a new platform that is new and shiny, perhaps like TikTok. You may be facing this, that people think that they need to go straight into these channels, these marketing communications tools, without really knowing why they're doing it. And that will just be a massive time suck. It will take focus away from other things. It will take your time. You may not really know why you're doing it. So the purpose of kind of showing you this cartoon, it always makes me smile, is that really with social media, you need to have a plan. You need to know why you're doing it and what you want to achieve out of it afterwards. So please, if you don't know already, scribble down some ideas later today. What is your big idea? Why do you want to use social media for your business? And so on to the plan. Some key points about social media marketing plans are that they really must align with your overall business strategy. Your purpose, your objectives for your business as a whole must be the starting point, and then decide how social media fits in to that rather than the other way around. Make sure that your plan is entirely focused on your audience, that they are the people that you're talking to. Whenever you're writing any social media content, you're writing for an audience. You're writing for the people that you want to do business with. When you're sharing content on social media, it's all very well setting up profiles, but you do need to post something once you've done all the setup. That content needs to tell a story. It needs to tell a meaningful story that gets across the key points in your business, and a story that your audience, it's relevant for them and it will be something that they can understand. And I'm going to show you how this comes together on the next slide. You've got to tell it in the right place. And really with social media, that means using the right platforms. And by choosing the right platforms, I mean the ones where your audience hang out. If your audience are on Facebook, you need to tell your story on Facebook. If your audience are on Instagram, you need to tell them on Instagram. And you now need to tell these stories consistently. This is probably the biggest challenge and why I try to focus on this 10 minutes a day, because consistency is the most important thing. We all know that we get very busy in our businesses with client work, with other things that we need to do. And sometimes social media or marketing activities can be the things that disappear. So consistency is what will work for you, what is practical for you, whether that's daily, whether that's weekly, whether it's monthly. You've just got to continue to show up, whether or not you're busy, because client work never is smooth. There was always ups and downs. But if you can appear consistently telling your story, hopefully it will smooth out some of those ups and downs. And it will just be a habit that just means that it's easier and less of a chore. Planning is great, but things always change, particularly with social media. So it's something that you do need to review regularly and refine, because I get asked for stats, what's good, what's not so good, what should I be aiming for? And my answer to that is always look at your own data and try and continually improve. It's small steps, it's a long game, so just look to try and continually improve. And as I said earlier, have a plan, and behind that plan sits an editorial calendar for your content. So what can this plan look like? This is a plan that I work with when I'm teaching in classes, when I'm running workshops, and it's a core part of my book. And I've written all of it now into a specific ebook called How to Write a Social Media Marketing Plan. And for IPSE viewers of this webinar and listeners, I have put a 50% discount code for you if you want to go to my website and download the entire step-by-step guide to creating a social media marketing plan. And my point is to do lots of research and prep that will bring this into a one-page document that you can refer to regularly. And it has several elements to it. It looks simple as a one-page plan, but there's lots of prep behind it. And I'm going to start along the bottom. On the bottom right, you will see measurements. And I always start with the end in mind. And the fact is, I suggested to you define your purpose, why you want to do this. So think about what is it you will measure in your business to know that social media is going to work for you. What do you want to achieve? So for me, on this example, I want to achieve growths in the number of followers I have on social media. I want to grow my email list. I want to sell my book. I want to sell courses. I want people to come to events that I'm hosting and running, and I want some traffic to my website. So I know from the very beginning what success will look like to me and what I'm going to measure. And then I'll work across to the left. You can see that I've got a calls to action box. So whenever I'm posting content on social media to try and achieve those measurements to get results, I've thought ahead about what calls to action I'm going to put in my content to help me achieve it. So it will be things like come to my website and read my blog, visit my website, download free resources, buy my book, attend an event. It's very focused on what I want to achieve. The other box along the bottom, and this is a template which you can download from my website. It's really this reminder of everything that I'm doing in one place. So I've popped on there my tone of voice guidelines so that if I'm writing anything and this one-page document is stuck to the side of my desk, then I can make sure that I stay in the right tone of voice. And for me, that's professional, positive, and kind of no nonsense, straight to the point. Times to post. I haven't shared with you on my plan here what are the best times for me to post, but I've got some tools in a second where I'll be telling you how to find out that insight. And I also do research up front in line with my social media plan of what hashtags I might use in my content on social media. I'm not going to talk a lot about hashtags today, but I've got a tool to help you do that research on the next slide. But coming up to the top of this social media marketing plan in what to share. And I've shown you some headings here of marketing news, social media, workplace learning, freelancing and small business, local business news, and my activity. This is just an example, but the example here is that I have 6 areas of content that I will share across social media to let people know about my business, who I am, what I stand for, and what I do. And the context here is that you can see that only one of those 6 areas is about me, is about my activity, buy my stuff kind of things. The other areas are slightly wider. They are my industry, marketing. They are my specialism, social media. They are areas that contribute to my business and I support, such as workplace learning. And then they're about my business. I'm a freelancer, I'm a small business, I'm a local business in Gloucestershire. So if there is information out there which I can gather that's relevant to these key topics, I will share it. If I'm creating content for social media, I stick in line with these 6 areas. They're quite broad, so it's not limiting. I would put bullet points under each one to keep me on track. I've shown you bullet points for just the first area here. So I've had a think about the kind of things that is relevant to my audience, that I want them to know about me and my business. And it just also gives me a range of content as well. It's not all about me. It's not just about my industry. It allows me to make sure that I mix things up, but also that it's quite focused and not confusing. So quite a brief overview. I have some resources at the end of the slide deck to help you define what those 4, 5, 6 areas might be for you, and some more resources now. So to research hashtags that might be relevant for you to include in your social media posts, a couple of tools I use. One is hashtagify.me. It's a website you can go to, and it's really useful to input one word that you may use as a hashtag in your content, and it will give you other ideas around that of how popular that hashtag is, what other people are using relative to that topic. It's just a great way to kind of create a list of ideas if you can't quite think of what words to use some days. And similarly, I use an app called Tagomatic. I use that more for Instagram, where you're using up to 30 hashtags against a post. And Tagomatic allows me to put in one word, and then it will bring up other words that I could use as hashtags. And then I can simply select, copy and paste that over to my Instagram. I will do this research when I'm planning, when I'm thinking about what I'm doing, so that I don't have to do this every single time I post. I save them somewhere, I've got a notes file, they're on my plan as a core, so I can just refer to them. I don't have to spend hours creating each post because I know what I'm going to use. You also saw on the bottom of that one-page plan the best times to post, and I do research on this, so it's a reminder. I'm going to talk about scheduling tools later on. But the real answer on the best time to post is in your own data, because it's about your own audience and when they're most likely to be online. And when they're most likely to be online is when you want to get in front of them. So if you're using Facebook, your Facebook Insights will tell you what time of day your audience are online. The same with Instagram. If you're using Instagram for your business, make sure you've changed it to a business account, and then you will be able to see the times of day and the days of the week your Instagram followers are online. For Twitter, there is a third-party tool called Twiriad. It's free and paid for depending on the size of your audience right now. But again, it will analyze your Twitter followers to see what time they're most likely to be online. Twitter is the fastest paced out of all the big 4 social media platforms, so that's most relevant to know what time people will see your content. So do have a look at that. I appreciate this is quite chicken and egg. If you don't have many followers, you won't have much data. So it could be something that you try and you test and you just keep an eye on the data and run these reports perhaps once a quarter. For LinkedIn, I don't think times to post is so relevant. It's a lot slower paced platform. And I find when I post content on my LinkedIn profile that I could be getting comments, posts, feedback, engagement for up to 10 days. So I'm not really so worried about it on LinkedIn. This content calendar that I said sits behind your overall social media marketing plan, I would suggest you put as much into this content calendar as you can manage with your own resources. So have a think about what can you do, how much resources have you got, how much time have you got, because this will help you be consistent. So for example, as I'm doing right now, I do a webinar once a month. That is planned out. I know what topics I'm doing for the next few months, and I know what I will do with the content after it's complete. Some of the content, like today, is what I would call evergreen content. It can be used again and again and again, and I could share this throughout the year. It's great content if it fits and it works for you. So I will plan out that I create probably one big piece of content a month. That's what goes into my content calendar. Think about, in terms of evergreen content, what will stay relevant? What are people looking for? And what do you want to share with them? And FAQs is a great place to start. This wasn't my idea, but I think it's a great one. If you look in your email outbox at the kind of questions that you're answering for people all the time, that's what you should create a piece of content on. So you'll see at the end of this slide deck that I'm giving you a list of blog content of things that I talk about all the time, of the frequently asked questions I've got, so that I can keep sharing it. A couple of other ideas for you here. There is a website called Answer the Public. Answer the Public allows you to put in a keyword, and then it will show you what questions people ask search engines based on that keyword. It will give you content suggestions based on who, what, where, why, when, and how. So very similar to the FAQs, but it may contain things that you haven't thought of. It won't wholly be relevant. You do need to filter through it, but the great thing is that you can download the results from your keyword search on Answer the Public to a CSV file and work your way through. It doesn't tell you how many people are asking those questions in search engines, but it's a great starting point. And another place to start is awareness days. Awareness days aren't evergreen, they are timely, but they're also pre-planned. So that if there are awareness days that you can find and have some resources again later on for you that are relevant to your business, then that may help you plan out your content calendar. Some awareness days that I get involved in are World Book Day, because I'm an author, International Women's Day, because that is part of the She Means Business campaign I support, Social Media Day, Emoji Day. Not every day that's available because there are lots, but if there are any that tie into my business, then that really helps me populate my content calendar. So again, this could be a whole nother webinar of topic, but hopefully some ideas for you to start stimulating what can sit behind your social media plan. I think my point of this is that with social media planning, and to allow you to not spend so much time on a daily basis, you need to separate out your thinking and doing. Spend some time creating that content calendar, whether it's for a quarter or for a year. You've written all your ideas down, and then it doesn't take so long on a daily basis. I said earlier about the fact that you don't need to create everything yourself. You can do what I would call curating content, so gathering content from around the web based on your key areas, the what to share ideas. And two tools I use for that are Google Alerts and Feedly. Feedly is basically a website where I can pull in feeds, RSS feeds from various websites into Feedly and see everything I need to in one place. And I can organize things in Feedly very much the way I do in my email inbox. But actually, I don't have emails coming into my email inbox that are newsletters or updates from various websites that I want to subscribe to. I have everything going into Feedly. So as and when I need to find content to share or not know what's going on in the world, everything is in one place waiting for me. It's part of the setup, but it means that I'm never having to sit there and go, oh, I wonder what's happening on this, or what's out there on this, or I need to go and visit 10 websites. I've set everything up and it's coming through to me. Now, I know this is quite brief, but I have created a download PDF document with screenshots that show you how to set up Google Alerts and how to use Feedly. And I'll show you the link for that at the end. It's about setting up these processes so it makes it much easier for you to manage on a daily basis. Managing Twitter. Twitter is great as a social media platform because it's the one that's most open, and because it's so fast, it does mean it's the place that you can go and find out what's happening in the world right now quite quickly. But it means that there's lots of activity on there and you've got to find it and narrow it down. So the tool I use here is Twitter Lists. It's on your twitter.com when you go and have a look. I've circled it on the left hand side. You'll see that when you're on your homepage. And Twitter are making this more visible now. They're bringing lists front and center. And basically, it's really easy to add people to a list. So, for example, if I wanted to add Ipse to a Twitter list, I would go on to their profile on Twitter, the middle screenshot, click on those three dots, and then you can see that a pop-up box, which I've shown on the right, comes up and I can add or remove people from lists, and I can view lists as well. Now, lists can be public or private. And when people are on lists, you don't necessarily need to be following them. So it's one way of keeping your following numbers down. It's one way of following people that you may not want them to know that you're following them, i.e. competitors. But it's also a great way to organize what you're following. So just as a quick example, I will create Twitter lists of local journalists. I will create Twitter lists of my clients. I will create Twitter lists of people mentioning a specific hashtag at an event. There's all sorts of lists you can create, but it means that, for example, if I needed to know what was happening with Gloucestershire media right now, I would go straight to that list and see what is being tweeted by members of that list without having to scroll through everything that's in my ever-changing newsfeed. A quick whirlwind tour. I just wanted to introduce you to lots of topics in this webinar today, with resources so that you could have a look at them afterwards. I mentioned scheduling earlier on, and yes, I do schedule on social media. I schedule what I would call my evergreen content. It's good use of my time to plan ahead and schedule what I'm working on. So I will share when I'm doing a webinar such as this and I'm planning out the webinar, I will go into a tool. I personally use Hootsuite for Twitter, and I will do all my tweets about a webinar at once. 1 week to go, 2 days to go, join me on Monday, it starts in an hour. Anything that I can pre-plan that I know I need to share, I pre-plan and do in one sitting. So I don't need to do that in the moment. I don't need to sit here an hour before a webinar, go, oh, I need to do a last minute tweet. It's all prepped, it's all planned as far as I can be. Hootsuite is my tool of choice. It's my tool of choice because it covers all the social media platforms that I use, and I can add multiple accounts. And if I wanted to, I could create a batch of content in a CSV file and upload it to Hootsuite already scheduled. Others are available. People will have their own choices. Buffer, MeetEdgar, SmarterQueue, just another 3. Personally, I also use Planoly for Instagram. While Hootsuite does allow me to schedule on Instagram, I like Planoly because I can visually see what my grid is going to look like before it goes out. So again, I will take loads of photos, create loads of images, upload them to Planoly and schedule as much as I can, because then it means my 10 minutes that I allow myself per day to stay on top of things are about the in the moment stuff, are reacting to what I see in the news, reacting to what I'm doing in the moment. Anything, my core activity to keep my business momentum going is all batched at a different time. I'm not a huge fan of automation tools. Many people will use automation tools for things like thank you for following and following back. I don't always recommend those because they're not always personalized. They can be seen as spammy and don't necessarily make my life any easier. But there are some tools that I use when I have an idea about something that I would like to automate. I will go and find a tool to help me do it. Okay, so it's slightly different. I'm showing you some tools here, but I'm not saying go away and look at IFTTT and see everything it can do. I'm saying if you have a need to automate something in your business, here's a tool that could work for you. Now, IFTTT stands for if this, then that. And there's a lot of things you can do within this tool. And it's basically kind of if someone tweets using this hashtag, reply to it. And if this person tweets, send me an email. Lots of different things you can do across lots of different social media platforms. I would recommend having a look. There is one rule that unfortunately it doesn't do any longer, and that is if someone tweets using a specific hashtag, put them into a Twitter list. But there is another tool, Zapier, that's how you say it, that I would use for that. I create a zap that says if someone tweets using this, for example, event hashtag, put them into this Twitter list. And like if this then that, Zapier has a number of tools and processes that you can automate within it. So that's really, those are 2 tools that I would really have a look at. But primarily, I just make sure that my notification settings are on each platform so that if anyone mentions me or sends me a message, that's the first thing that I will see on my phone when I get out of a meeting, when I have a coffee break, so that I can stay on top of things. I make sure that for a daily basis, it's notifications that I sponsor my time on. A couple of questions coming in, but I'll come back to those at the end. I also think it's important, a couple of tools here for automation, but these are more about keeping your accounts clean and tidy. Cleaner for Instagram is an app that I use, and Untweets for Twitter. And they're just something that I will use once a month or perhaps at the end of a campaign that I'm working on. And they basically allow me to spring clean in terms of unfollowing people that are not active on the platform, on tweets, or on Cleaner, perhaps unfollowing people that are not following me back. That's not always something I recommend, but these are quite good tools. Have a look at what the options are within them. They'll help you keep your accounts nice and tidy. I also create myself a number of templates. So just as I suggested creating content based on FAQs, I will create templates if it's things that I'm doing repeatedly. And this is very often in LinkedIn when I'm responding to people and triggers that I call them triggers for reasons to send messages. I tweak them slightly, but I do have core templates that I will use. So for example, I just created these in a notes file, but I have different responses for how I communicate with people on LinkedIn. So for example, when I receive invitations to connect and I don't know who they are, I will use my LinkedIn response A. Thanks for the invitation to connect. I don't think we've met in person. Forgive me if we have. How might we both benefit from being connected? If it's something that I'm typing out all the time, I'll just create it as a template, have it in a notes file, and cut and paste as I go along and manage my inbox. If I can replicate the things that I'm doing regularly into templates, I find that just really good use of my time. So have a think about what you're typing all the time, whether it's emails, whether it's on LinkedIn, whether it's direct messages, and just create yourself a little notes file to cut and paste. And then the other thing I do, because we're all busy, and as you might tell, I love a list, is I've created, and you can download this from my website after the session, a master task list. I refer to this when I'm training and when I'm running workshops. It can apply every social media platform. You could tweak this, what's relevant for you, but kind of tasks that I think you need to do on a daily basis, and that's your 10 minutes a day. Things that you may want to do weekly and things you may want to do monthly. And to save me reading out every one of these, because you can look at it afterwards, on a daily basis, in that 10 minutes a day, it is about reviewing my timelines, the people I'm following for updates, news and insights. It's about engaging with my audience, liking, commenting and sharing. Because I'm quite focused on who my audience is, it doesn't take me that long to find a few things to engage with. I respond to my notifications as required. I check keyword mentions from competitors or things about my industry, and that's when I'm using Google Alerts. I do go in to the platforms and just see what's trending, to see if there's something that I need to get involved with. And I'm just looking for these conversation triggers of sending messages, thank you, how are you, thanks for sharing, that kind of thing. If there's something timely, I'll post that as well. Sounds quite a lot for 10 minutes. I don't do all of them every day, but it's just an idea of things that you could be doing. And if you're really focused, you really can do that quite quickly. But on that weekly basis, yes, a little bit longer. You may need to schedule your future content. You do need to spend some time thinking about building your audiences as well. It's all very well posting content, but you do need to kind of follow other people and engage with them, invite them to like your pages, etc. You may need to send messages to follow up your networking events. I suggest having a look at your metrics and your data every now and again, and we have a session coming up on next month's webinar on the topic of social media measurement. And then throughout the month, it's about checking your profiles are up to date, maybe doing that spring cleaning I talked about, and reviewing your activity. I've also put on this one pager some things to think about before you post. There's a bit of a checklist and reminder. So I have covered quite a lot for you in this session. And really your next steps, my recommendations is that you go back to thinking about what are your goals for social media? What is your big idea for doing this? When you know that and you've started to create your plan and do some research, then do a bit of spring cleaning, tidy things up. Think about spending some time creating your own resource library, key resources for content that you can share, and that is using the Google Alerts and the Feedly. Identify some relevant tools that will help you save time, scheduling tools, automation tools. Don't use tools for the sake of it, but my advice is that if anything can help me be more productive and save my time, that is a good tool to use. And do schedule time. I think this 10 minutes a day concept is that I do have in my calendar when I'm going to do this. If it's not on my to-do list, if it's not in my calendar, for me, it doesn't happen. So I do have blocks of time around content creation, and I do know when I'm going to do my scheduling, and I do know roughly what I make sure that I do those 10 minutes a day to stay up to date and to stay visible. So some questions coming in. So I will put this slide up for you on the resources that I'm sharing with you today while I have a look at those questions. But I've written most of this as blogs in terms of what are those key messages, the things you're going to share, the top part of the one-page social media plan, best times to post content, how to use awareness days. A question that I'm preempting related to that is how to use content that isn't yours. Some advice there. Twitter lists, hashtags, and in case you're not aware, alongside of these resources, I do a weekly email newsletter on a Monday with all the latest social media updates and what's happening, because change is the only thing that's constant about social media. And that is my content creation time. That is the one thing I do every week. Make sure I do it consistently. People know that that's what I'm going to do. And the links to the free resources, the downloads I've mentioned, are on my website there, and the ebook is available in my shop. So thank you for listening. There's a large number of you on this session today, so I'm just going to have a look at the questions that are in there, and if you have any others, then feel free to pop them in the box. At what point in the day would you typically spend your 10 minutes on social media? Everyone's schedule is different. I know from having looked at my own Facebook insights, Instagram insights, Twitter report via Twiriad when my audiences are most active. So I tend to know what time of day I'm going to get notifications and messages. My scheduling doesn't matter when I do that. It's all on schedules. I typically spend my 10 minutes on social media in the afternoons because I know that that's when my audience are online and I can pick up anything from the morning that happens. So probably mid-afternoon, late afternoon for me, depending on what I'm doing in my business. Afternoons tend to be when I'm personally not creating content or writing, because I work much better early in the mornings. So it's responding to emails, checking in on social media for me happens in the afternoon, but I do often check in the morning, depending on where I am, if I'm commuting, things like that. But this is about what's right for you. And that's why lots of people talk about social media scheduling tools as maybe not being so effective, but this is about your own time management. Social media is potentially not a huge part of your business. Some of you may not enjoy it. So just make life easier for you and just go, it's 3 o'clock, it's time for me to check in. Whatever works for you. Come back to that one. Planoly, being able to I hear about Planoly and being able to visualize your grid. Is the grid that important? And doesn't that remove the in the moment post as it then ruins the visual you've created? I have a free online course on Instagram, and one of the first days on that course is just planning ahead of what you want to be sharing on Instagram. Do you want to just be sharing pictures of you attending events or pictures of your product? Will there be a color theme to what you're doing? Will there be a very specific detailed graphic design layout? That's up to you. There are 2 parts to Instagram. Obviously the grid, which stays there that people have to scroll through to see, versus stories, which are in the moment. And I tend to use my stories much more for in the moment. I'm at an event, I'm traveling, this is where I am, I'll create it as a story, and then perhaps have one great picture that I will put on the grid. It's up to you whether it wants to be in the moment and less designed, perhaps. It depends what you're trying to achieve and what you're getting across. But the grid and stories are both important on Instagram if Instagram is the platform where your audience are hanging out. I very much think it's about thinking ahead as to, what do you want this to look like? What do you want it to do? So that you can be in the moment if you need to, or if you don't need to, then you don't have to. I hope that kind of helps, but please do drop me a note if you want to discuss that in more detail that's relevant to your business. Someone has asked, how many people from a webinar like this buy from you? I think a webinar is a type of content. And it depends how you want to use that content, whether it is buying from you, whether it's downloading. It comes back to what you measure success as, and what you want to achieve from it. So I'm not going to give you a specific answer to that question, because hopefully I'm not actually really selling anything, and I'm in a different business to yourself. It depends on your objective for the content and how you're going to repurpose it and what you're going to use, but it should be very much part of your planning if you do want people to buy from you. But no one buys from just one-off session. It's about consistently showing up and consistently talking. I do one of these every month and lots of other events. So again, if you want to pick that up with me directly, then please do just drop me a note. Just starting with my social media on a new product, how do I build my audience? That's again a huge topic, could be a whole nother webinar. I've got some resources that I could send you on that. Various ways. It's about sharing great content, sharing content in a way that will allow people to find you. So for example, your hashtags, making sure that you share it in the places that people are showing up on the right platform, following people, engaging with people, hoping people will follow you back. You could pay to promote your posts, and then if people like the posts, you can invite them to like your page. Kind of 101 different ways. No quick wins, no overnight success, no matter how much money you throw at it either. Focus on the long game and focus on building the right people in your audience, your end customers, but perhaps also, if it's something new, think about who might be influencing them as well. Is there a handful of people, whether you know them or whether you can find them, that can help you as well get that message out? So no quick wins to building your audience. It's kind of long-term game, but you've got to know who they are and who you want to attract before you can actually start with that question as well. It is 1:15. A few quick fire questions there. As I said, you will get a copy of this recording. You will get a copy of the slides. Just as a reminder, if anyone is based in Swansea, I will be there with IPSE this week, talking about the importance of social media to freelancers. I have the next 3 webinars are in the schedule on the topic of measurements that matter, do's and don'ts, and perhaps the last question, how to use social media to find new clients. If you have got topics that you think would be useful for a webinar, please don't hesitate to drop me a message or contact IPSE as well. We're always looking for your suggestions and feedback, as well as ideas of our own. And National Freelancers Day is the 18th of June. I will be at the event in London hosting a workshop. So if you're able to come along, it would be great to meet you there. Thanks again for your time. Thank you for listening. I know I've talked quite quickly today and covered a lot of tools, so I hope you find it useful, and enjoy the rest of your day.